You've heard the stories. The ones whispered at sleepovers or passed around in the back of the school bus or shared in the dark corners of the internet. Urban legends, those creepy tales that always seem to happen to a friend of a friend, just far enough away to feel safe, but close enough to make you wonder. But what if I told you that some of those legends aren't just stories? What if I told you that right now, there are people out there living through nightmares that sound exactly like the ones you've only dared to imagine? Tonight, I'm going to take you deep into the shadows where myth and reality blur. These aren't just cautionary tales or campfire stories. These are real accounts, documented, witnessed, and still unfolding. By the end of this video, you'll never look at these legends the same way again. So before you turn off the lights or brush off that chill crawling up your spine, remember, some legends never die. Some are still out there waiting for you to believe. There's an urban legend that's been floating around for years. Maybe you've heard it. It's always the same. Someone's walking home late at night, maybe after a party or a late shift, and they spot a man on the sidewalk. He's not doing anything, not at first. He's just standing there under a flickering streetlight with a grin stretched too wide across his face. Not a friendly smile, not even a creepy one, just wrong. The kind of smile that makes your skin crawl, that makes you want to cross the street or turn around and run. They call him the Smiling Man. I used to think it was just a story, something people made up to scare each other. Or maybe a way to explain away the weirdness you sometimes feel when you re-alone in the city at night. But then it happened to me. I haven't slept the same since. It was a Thursday night, late spring, the kind of night when the city feels almost empty. I'd stayed late at a friend's apartment, lost track of time, and missed the last bus. I figured it was no big deal. I'd walked home before. The air was cool, the streets were quiet, and the only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and the occasional bark of a dog. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how the city could feel so different when everyone else was asleep. I cut through a side street to shave a few minutes off my walk. The streetlights here were older, some of them flickering, others dead. My footsteps echoed off the brick walls, and I tried not to think about how alone I was. That's when I saw him. He was standing about half a block ahead, right under one of the working streetlights. Tall, thin, wearing a suit that looked a little too big for him. His head was tilted back, and he was staring up at the sky like he was watching for something. I slowed down, thinking maybe I should cross the street, but I told myself not to be paranoid. People stand around all the time, right? Maybe he was waiting for someone, but then he started to move. Not toward me, at least. Not at first. He took a few steps, almost like he was dancing, his feet gliding across the pavement in this weird, exaggerated way. And then he stopped, turned, and looked right at me. That's when I saw the smile. It was... I don't even know how to describe it. It was too wide, like his mouth was trying to stretch off his face. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, and he just stared at me, grinning. I felt this cold wave of fear wash over me, like my body knew something my brain didn't. I tried to keep walking, tried to act normal, but every instinct was screaming at me to run. I glanced back, hoping he'd lost interest, but he hadn't moved. He was still staring, still smiling. I picked up my pace, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own footsteps. That's when I heard it, the sound of shoes scraping against concrete. I looked back again, and he was following me. Not running, not even walking fast, just gliding, almost, with that same unnatural smile plastered on his face. I turned the corner, hoping to lose him, but when I glanced over my shoulder, he was still there, closer now. I started to run. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I sprinted down the block, my breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. I could hear him behind me, not running, just moving, always the same distance away, always smiling. I ducked into a convenience store, nearly knocking over a display of chips. The cashier looked up, startled, but I didn't care. I just needed to be somewhere with people, somewhere with lights. I waited there for what felt like forever, pretending to browse, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to peek outside. The street was empty. No sign of the smiling man. I told myself it was over, that I'd just let my imagination get the best of me. But as I walked home, every shadow seemed to move. Every face seemed to be hiding a grin. I never saw him again. It's not really. But sometimes late at night, I'll catch a glimpse of someone out of the corner of my eye. A man in a suit, standing just a little too still, smiling just a little too wide. And I wonder if he's still out there waiting for someone else to walk down the wrong street at the wrong time. People say the smiling man is just an urban legend. But I know what I saw, and I know I'm not the only one. So next time you're walking home alone and you see someone smiling at you from the shadows, don't smile back. Just keep walking and hope he doesn't follow. There is something especially unsettling about meeting the unknown in a place you thought you knew by heart. It's one thing to fear a stranger on a dark street, but it's another to realize that even the most familiar corners of your world can hide something sinister. The smiling man could be anyone, anywhere. A reminder that danger sometimes wears a human face. But not all legends are about people lurking in the shadows. Sometimes the terror is woven into the very places we trust the most. Because what if the next story isn't about a stranger at all, but about an ordinary object sitting quietly in your own home, waiting for its moment to strike? If you grew up in certain parts of the world, you might have heard whispers about a painting called The Crying Boy. It's a simple portrait, a young boy with big, sorrowful eyes, a single tear rolling down his cheek. But the legend that clings to this painting is anything but simple. They say it's cursed, that wherever the painting hangs, disaster follows. Most famously, fire. House after house, reduced to ashes, with only the painting left untouched in the ruins. It sounds like something out of a ghost story, right? But here's the thing. There are real documented cases, dozens of them, where homes burned to the ground. And firefighters found the crying boy among the debris, eerily unscathed. I always thought it was just a weird coincidence or maybe a trick of the media, until my family brought one home. It started as a joke, honestly. My mom found the painting at a thrift store, buried behind a stack of old frames. She thought it was quirky, and for $5, she couldn't resist. I remember the way she laughed as she showed it to us, holding it up in the kitchen. "Look at this little guy," she said. "He's so dramatic." My dad rolled his eyes, but he let her hang it in the hallway right outside my bedroom door. The first few days, it was just a painting. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the boy's eyes followed me, no matter where I stood. At night, I'd catch glimpses of his face in the dim light, the tear on his cheek glinting like a drop of mercury. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was letting the legend get to me. But then things started to happen. It began with small stuff. The hallway light would flicker, even though the bulb was new. My cat, usually fearless, started avoiding the hallway altogether, hissing if I tried to carry her past the painting. My little brother, who was only 6, started having nightmares. He'd wake up crying, saying the boy in the picture was sad because he was trapped. My parents brushed it off. "It's just a painting," my dad said. But I could tell he was uneasy. My mom stopped joking about it, and I noticed she'd started avoiding the hallway at night too. Then, one evening, the smoke alarm went off. We rushed into the kitchen to find the toaster in flames, the cord sparking wildly. My dad managed to put it out before it spread, but the whole house smelled like burnt plastic for days. He chalked it up to a faulty appliance. But I couldn't help noticing that the painting was directly across from the kitchen door, untouched by the smoke. A week later, it happened again. This time it was the living room lamp. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a strange popping sound. The lamp flickered, then burst into flames. My mom screamed, and my dad grabbed the fire extinguisher. Once again, the fire was contained, but the sense of dread in our house grew thicker. I started researching the legend, reading every article I could find. The stories were all the same: unexplained fires, the painting always surviving. Some people claimed the curse could be broken by giving the painting away, but others said that only made things worse. I begged my mom to get rid of it. She hesitated, but after the second fire, she agreed. We wrapped the painting in an old towel and drove it to a donation bin across town. I felt a wave of relief as we left it behind, convinced the nightmare was over. But that night, I woke to the sound of crying. At first I thought it was my brother, but when I checked his room, he was fast asleep. The sound was coming from the hallway. I stepped out, heart pounding, and saw nothing, just the empty wall where the painting had hung. The crying stopped as soon as I turned on the light. The next morning, my mom found a single wet streak running down the wall, right where the painting used to be. Like a tear, we never saw the painting again, but the fire stopped. Still, sometimes late at night I think I hear that soft, mournful sobbing echoing through the house. And I wonder if the legend is really just a story, or if some things, some curses, cling to us long after we think we've left them behind. It's strange, isn't it, how something as ordinary as a painting can carry so much fear. How an object can become a vessel for a legend, or maybe even a curse. We like to think we're safe in our own homes, surrounded by familiar things, but sometimes the danger is already inside, hiding in plain sight. If a simple portrait can leave a trail of disaster and unanswered questions, what else might be lurking just out of sight, waiting for its next victim? If you thought that was unsettling, wait until you hear about the legend that's still claiming victims today. A story that blurs the line between the living and the dead, and proves that some roads are better left untraveled. There's a legend that's been told in almost every town, in every country. It's a story that changes just enough to feel local, but always keeps the same chilling core. It's the tale of the Phantom Hitchhiker. You know the one? A driver, usually alone and late at night, spots a woman standing by the side of a deserted road. She's pale, sometimes dressed in white, sometimes in a faded dress, always looking lost or desperate. The driver, feeling a mix of concern and curiosity, pulls over and offers her a ride. She climbs in, gives an address, and sits quietly in the back seat. But before they reach the destination, she vanishes, leaving nothing behind but a cold chill and a story that will haunt the driver for the rest of their life. I always thought these stories were just urban myths. It's the kind of thing you'd hear from your older cousin or read on a message board. But then I started digging and I found real police reports. Actual statements from people who swore they'd picked up a woman who disappeared right before their eyes. And then one night, I heard a first-hand account from someone I trusted, my uncle. He's not the type to believe in ghosts. He's a truck driver, the kind of guy who's seen it all and doesn't scare easily. But there was something in his voice when he told me what happened that made the hairs on my arms stand up. It was late autumn, and he was driving his usual route along a stretch of highway that cuts through miles of empty farmland. The night was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. The fog was so thick, he could barely see past the headlights. He was tired, fighting to keep his eyes open, when he saw her, a woman standing on the shoulder, her arms wrapped around herself, shivering in a thin white dress. He slowed down, rolled down the window, and asked if she needed help. She nodded, her voice barely more than a whisper as she gave him an address in a nearby town. He unlocked the passenger door, and she climbed in, her skin icy to the touch. He tried to make small talk, but she just stared straight ahead, her eyes fixed on the road. He said the silence was the worst part. It felt heavy, unnatural, like the air in the cab had thickened. He kept glancing over, trying to catch her eye, but she never looked at him. Just sat there, hands folded in her lap, lips pressed into a thin line. As they neared the address she'd given, he turned to ask which house was hers, but the seat was empty. No sound, no movement. She was just gone. The only sign she'd ever been there was a faint, wet imprint on the seat, like she'd been sitting in the rain. He pulled over, heart pounding, and stumbled out of the truck, looking up and down the empty road. There was no one there. He drove to the address she'd given, desperate for some kind of explanation. An old woman answered the door, her face pale when he described the hitchhiker. She told him her daughter had died on that stretch of road years ago, hit by a car while walking home in a white dress. My uncle never drove that route at night again. After he told me his story, I started looking for more. I found dozens of reports, drivers who'd picked up a woman matching the same description. Always on that same stretch of highway, always vanishing before they reached town. Some said she left behind a chill in the air. Others claimed to find a single strand of long, dark hair on the seat. A few even said they heard her voice whispering in the back seat, begging them to slow down, to be careful. One account stuck with me. A young woman driving home from a late shift saw the hitchhiker and, against her better judgment, stopped to help. The woman climbed in, her eyes red from crying. She asked to be taken to the cemetery on the edge of town. The driver agreed, trying to make conversation, but the hitchhiker just stared out the window, silent tears streaming down her face. When they reached the cemetery, the driver turned to say goodbye, but the passenger door was already open, swinging gently in the wind. The hitchhiker was gone. The only thing left was a damp, faded scarf on the seat, smelling faintly of lilies. The driver brought the scarf to the police, who recognized it immediately. It had belonged to a girl who died in a car accident on that very road decades earlier. People still report seeing her. Sometimes she's standing by the roadside. Sometimes she's walking through the fog, her dress glowing in the headlights. Some say she's looking for a way home. Others think she's trying to warn drivers, to keep them from meeting the same fate. I don't know what I believe, but I do know this. The legend of the Phantom Hitchhiker isn't just a story. It's a warning, echoing through the years, reminding us that some tragedies never really end. And if you ever find yourself driving down a lonely road at night, and you see a woman in white standing in the mist, think twice before you stop, because some passengers are never meant to reach their destination. And some legends are still out there, waiting for the next person to believe. It's strange how the line between myth and reality can blur until you can tell where one ends and the other begins. We grow up hearing these stories about the smiling man lurking in the shadows, cursed painting that refuses to burn, a ghostly hitchhiker searching for a way home, and we tell ourselves they're just urban legends, just stories. But sometimes the world reminds us that the things we laugh off or dismiss as superstition might have roots in something real, something that still lingers just out of sight. Maybe that's why these legends stick with us. They tap into our deepest fears, the unknown stranger, the cursed object, the restless spirit. They remind us that even in our modern world, there are mysteries we can't explain, dangers we can't always see coming. And sometimes the scariest part isn't the legend itself, but the possibility that it could happen to anyone, even you. So what about you? Have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain or heard a story that made you question what's real? Share your own urban legend encounters in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And who knows, maybe your story will be the next one to keep someone up at night. And remember, next time you hear a story that sounds too strange to be true, think twice before you laugh it off, because some legends never die. You're just waiting for someone new to believe.